Welcome to this track guide for Spa-Francorchamps in the Formula 3 fixed setup series in iRacing. We're going to start with a quick guide before moving on to a much more detailed version of the lap on the second time around. So you need to start the lap by getting a nice clean exit from the final corner before moving across to the left hand side and picking out a braking point for the really sharp turn 1. We brake pretty firmly for this one, getting the car down to second gear, kissing the curb on the inside, and then getting early on the power as we head down the hill to Eau Rouge. Now we just take the shortest possible line here, you meet up with the wall on the right hand side, and we're going to cut quite a lot of the curb at the bottom of the hill here, so actually all 4 wheels off over that curb, taking a nice straight line up the hill. Now I avoid the inside curb there on this lap. I'm going to show you a comparison to a different lap when we do the detailed guide. It doesn't make a lot of difference whether or not you jump over the inside curb. You won't get an off track either way. Now we're looking for the braking point, which happens to be about halfway along the curb on the left hand side. There it is, we trail the brakes in, use some of the curb on the right. I get on the power slightly too hard early, which puts me a little bit wide, but from here it's totally flat out through this next right-hander, using some curb, and then looking for the braking point for the tight, long downhill hairpin. We trail the brakes up to the inside. We're very slightly wide initially before meeting up with the apex and getting full on the throttle towards the end of the corner. Little lift off the gas before this left-hander, and we use a lot of exit curb, and it's not an off-track. You can get away with a lot there. Now on the previous fastest lap I used 5th gear for this corner. This time I use 6th, and look, there's barely any difference in the lap time delta, so use whatever works best for you as long as you don't run wide in the middle of Pouhon. Next up we've got a 90-degree right and then left. We go down 3 gears, then very careful on the throttle in the middle here. We don't want to get pushed too wide and we don't want to lose the rear end. You can use some exit curb just here. Now the next right-hander is crucial to get a good exit because there's a very long straight that follows, so we just went down 1 gear and then got nice and cleanly on the throttle without running too wide and not getting an off track there. Now we just want to really carry as much speed as possible, taking the shortest possible line all the way through this really easy, long, fast section. So look what I'm doing, I'm just picking my way between the white lines, trying to minimise the scrub with the steering, barely turning the wheel, and you don't want to touch that exit curb because it will slow you down with the low ride height of this fixed setup car. We brake about now, just before the curb, all the way down to second gear. First gear is possible, but I find that it just holds you back a bit. So second gear we get smoothly on the power, use all of the exit curb that you can without touching the green, and that is a fast lap of Spa-Francorchamps. So next we're going to look at that lap in a little bit more detail. So same again, we exit the final corner cleanly, then we need to get over to the left hand side ready for the hairpin turn 1 at La Source. So I brake pretty firmly and pretty early because it's really important to be under control here. We peel away from the inside and then turn tighter, and on this lap I'm not perfect. I could be slightly tighter, but we managed to get on the power really hard without having to back off at all, and we don't run wide. So looking pretty good so far. We've now got this downhill section, so plenty of momentum, and we just keep it absolutely flat out through here. There's no need to lift, even on cold tyres. We use plenty of curb on the inside here, just really shorten the distance. There's no off track there. And as we crest the hill here, you can either run a little bit wide, or you can use all the curb. Using the curb will slightly bog you down, but it's a shorter line. Running wide means that you're not going to get bogged down by bottoming out, but you're going slightly further. From here on, it's just easy, 6th gear, staying on the left-hand side. In a race, this is a great opportunity to slipstream and overtake people. And then as we get to this next braking point, we brake halfway along the curb, and we then trail the brakes up to the apex using some apex curb as well. Now you're going to notice I get on the power slightly too hard and early, which forces me a little bit wide here. You'd better be off a little bit closer to the curb, and then you can get on the power early. From this point onwards, I'm totally flat out, and as you can see there on the telemetry on the left-hand side, we don't lift at all for this right-hander. It's just easily flat out if you've got that line right. Just touching the curb on the exit. And now this downhill hairpin, you just need to be pretty tight. We're braking quite early because we need to trail the brakes up to the apex. There you can see we've trailed on the braking trace. We're very slightly wide initially, but that allows me to get to the apex near the end of the corner and go straight to full throttle. This next corner is just a little lift, so here we go. In fact, quite a big lift, but we don't touch the brakes. Touch the curb on the inside, and that there is about the maximum you're going to get away with running wide without getting an off track. We didn't get one on that lap, but we were very, very close. This next corner, on this lap I did it in 6th gear as I mentioned on the previous lap, and you stay flat out until just after you turn in. It's really just a big lift and just breathing on the brakes just to keep the nose in. Flat out though, the moment the car's facing where you want it to go, straight back to full throttle, so don't waste any time getting on the power. And these corners are pretty straightforward. We brake just before the curb, apex on the kind of normal geometric place, a little bit of trail braking to get you to that apex. just a lift for the left-hander here, then full throttle on the exit, using lots of that curb. Very, very important here to get a good exit. So we go down one gear, very gentle braking. We're just braking enough so we don't run wide onto that exit curb and get dragged off the track on the AstroTurf. And from this section onwards, it's just very, very easy. Foot to the floor, picking the shortest possible line between those white lines and trying to minimise the scrub with the front wheel. So you're just really turning the steering wheel the minimum amount that you can get away with without running wide. Now watch out for this curb on the right hand side. If you touch that, it will scrub a couple of miles an hour off your speed. And we're going to brake just before this next curb. So you see we're braking as we approach the red and white curb down to second gear, and I'm trailing the brakes up to the first apex to keep the weight over the nose. And look at these throttle traces, 2 smooth green throttle traces, because we don't want to spin the wheels on the exit of those tight corners with all that steering lock on. So across the line to finish our detailed lap of Spa. I hope that was useful for you, and I hope you enjoy driving Spa this week. It's one of the best tracks on iRacing. Next week it's Zandvoort. See you there.